The November rain was coming down in sheets across the empty parking lot of Eisenhower Middle School, turning the cracked asphalt into a slick, dark mirror reflecting the gloomy sky above. The air hung thick with the scent of damp leaves and a faint whiff of gasoline, mixing with the distant rumble of thunder that echoed through the quiet town of Harmony Creek, Iowa. Most of the kids had long since headed home, their boisterous laughter replaced by the steady thwack, thwack, thwack of the rain against the metal roof. Earl Johnson, pushing his janitor's cart down the deserted hallway, his well-worn sneakers squeaking on the freshly mopped floor. At 63 years young, he'd spent 31 years tending to these halls, watching generations of kids grow up and move on to bigger things, lives he could only imagine. His back ached, a testament to decades of bending and scrubbing, his hands rough and calloused from harsh chemicals and honest work. But Earl never complained. This school was his life. These floors, these walls, these classrooms, they were his legacy. Next week would be his last retirement. The word felt foreign, like saying goodbye to the only friend he had left. His wife, Betty, had passed away 5 years ago, and their daughter lived across the country, too wrapped up in her own life to visit more than once a year. The school was all Earl had. He was locking up the supply closet when he heard it through the rain. A sound that just didn't belong, metal grinding against pavement. A frustrated curse. Earl ambled over to the side entrance and peered through the Rain Street glass door. Now, before we go any further, if you believe in lending a helping hand, in second chances, and standing up for what's right, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channels, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that good old-fashioned neighborliness still exists. In every corner of the world, out in the parking lot, a massive Harley-Davidson lay on its side, its back wheel still spinning slowly. Beside it, a man knelt in the downpour, his leather vest soaked to the bone, his hands working furiously at something Earl couldn't quite make out. Even from this distance, Earl could tell the man was in a fix. His movements were frantic, desperate. Earl didn't. Well, on the patches on the vest, or the tattoos snaking up the man's arms, he didn't give a second thought to what others might say. He grabbed his trusty umbrella and headed out into the storm. The man looked up as Earl approached. His face was lined and tough, a thick beard dripping wet, eyes that had clearly seen things no one should ever see. But in those eyes, Earl also saw something else. Desperation. Fear. The chain snapped, the man said, his voice raspy, like gravel grinding against steel. Bike went down. I can't get her running. And my phone's dead. He gestured helplessly at the heavens. Been stuck here for 2 hours. Every shop in town closed early because of the weather. Earl looked at the Harley and then back at the man. He saw the red and white patches on the vest. The words. That might have scared most folks away. Iron Riders. But Earl didn't see a gang member. He saw a man stranded in a storm, cold and alone. Come on inside, Earl said simply. Dry off. Use the phone in my office. The man, who introduced himself as Garrett, followed Earl into the school. In the janitor's cozy office, surrounded by cleaning supplies and faded photographs, Garrett made some calls for help. But the news wasn't good. No tow truck could come till morning. No mechanic would crack open their shop till the storm blew over. He was stuck. Earl listened to the one-sided conversations, watching Garrett's shoulders slump with each dead end. When the calls were done, Garrett sank into the worn chair, looking more defeated than a man his size had any right to look. I got a motel 40 miles. From here, Garrett said quietly. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow morning. I promised I'd be there. I've never broken a promise to her. He paused, something cracking behind his hardened exterior. She's turning 7. First birthday since her mama passed. Earl thought about his own empty apartment, about his last paycheck sitting in his pocket, the money he'd been squirreling away for. Well, he didn't rightly know what for anymore. Retirement meant diddly squat when you had no one to share it with. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope. His entire last paycheck, $347. Everything he had until his pension checks kicked in next month. "Take this," Earl said, and pressing the envelope into Garrett's hands. "Get a cab to the motel. Get to your daughter." Garrett stared at the money, then at Earl. His tough face softened, something raw and vulnerable peeking through. "I can't take this. You don't even know me." Earl smiled. The gentle smile of a man who'd learned that kindness was its own reward. "I know you're a father who wants to see his little girl on her birthday. That's all I need to know." It took another 20 minutes of persuading. But finally, Garrett relented. Earl called the only cab company in town, paid the driver in advance with cash from his own wallet, and watched as Garrett disappeared into the rainy night, heading toward his daughter. 3 months went by. Earl settled into retirement, filling his days with crossword puzzles and walks to the library. The school threw him a small retirement shindig. A few cupcakes and a card signed by the teachers. It was nice enough, but Earl felt the emptiness of his life more keenly now that the hallways were no longer his to care for. One Saturday morning in February, Earl was sitting in his small apartment when he heard it. A distant rumble like thunder, but the sky was clear. The sound grew louder, closer, until it filled the whole street. He shuffled over to his window and looked outside. His heart skipped a beat. Motorcycles, the hundreds of them. They lined every inch of his quiet street, chrome gleaming in the winter sun, engines idling like the heartbeat of some great beast, leather vests everywhere, red and white patches emblazoned under the cold sky. And at the front, walking towards his building, was Garrett. Earl met him at the door, speechless. "And Earl Johnson," Garrett said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "3 months ago, you gave a stranger your last paycheck so he could see his daughter on her birthday. You didn't know me. You didn't ask for anything. You just gave..." Earl felt tears welling up in his eyes. "I was just helping someone in need." Garrett shook his head slowly. "You gave me the most important gift I've ever received. My daughter's face, and when I walked through that door, the memory we made together. You gave me that." He gestured to the rows of bikers behind him. "When I told my brothers what you did, they wanted to come, to show you. That kindness like yours doesn't go unnoticed." A woman stepped forward, gray-streaked hair pulled back, kind eyes above a weathered face. She was holding a large envelope. "We heard you spent 31 years taking care of Eisenhower Middle School," she said, "taking care of other people's children." She handed Earl an envelope filled with cash in hand. "It's time someone took care of you." Earl opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a check. His knees went weak. It was more money than he had made in 5 years of working his janitorial job. "And this," Garrett added, gesturing to 2 iron riders who rolled forward. They revealed a brand new Harley-Davidson with a sidecar attached. "This is so you can visit that daughter of yours whenever you want. No more waiting for her to come to you." The neighbors had gathered on their porches, watching in disbelief as nearly 300 bikers clapped and cheered for the quiet janitor who had never asked for anything in return. Garrett found Earl one last time as the engines began to roar back to life. "You changed my life," he said. "You showed me that strangers can still be kind, that the world is not as cold as I thought." He pressed a card into Earl's hand. "You are family now. If you ever need anything, you call. And before we end, we have one special request for you. Comment below with the words, 'Kindness has no uniform,' to show that you stand with Earl. Because sometimes the smallest act of generosity, given when you have almost nothing left, can return in ways that change everything. Remember, what you give from the heart never truly leaves you,